Good morning, everybody. Hey, I want to tell you about one question that can change your hope level and everything else in your life. When you ask this question of yourself and of others all around you, of situations you are in, what can this become? Not what is this right now, not what are they right now, but what can they become? You know, one of my favorite people is Dr. Howard Hendricks, a famous professor. He probably trained more pastors than anybody else in American history. I myself sat under his teaching at conferences that he taught at, but it wasn't until he died a couple of years ago and I read his obituary that I learned the rest of the story. His parents split up right after he was born. His grandma raised him, and he described himself as, quote, a hellraiser and a troublemaker. His fifth grade teacher, Miss Simon, once tied him to his chair with rope, taping his mouth shut. She said Howard was, quote, the worst behaved child in this entire school, and predicted that he and his three friends would wind up in prison, and the other three did. When the next school year began, his sixth grade teacher, Miss Noe, went down the roll and called his name, and Miss Noe studied Howard for a moment and said, you know, I've heard a lot about you. But then she smiled and added, and I don't believe a word of it. And he was stunned. He said Miss Noe made him feel for the first time that someone cared about him. He called that moment, quote, a fundamental turning point, not only in my education, but in my life. Why? Miss Noe called out what Howard Hendricks could become. And he did become that. He became a professor of ministry, training thousands of pastors, including me. What can this become? You know why this is a key question? Because this is how God thinks. This question is found between the lines all through the book of Isaiah. The book of Isaiah, as we talked about this last weekend, was written to people in a time of darkness. And yet God speaks to them encouragement like this from Isaiah chapter 60, verses 1 and 2. Arise, shine, for your light has come. The glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth. Thick darkness is over the peoples, but the Lord rises upon you. All through the book of Isaiah, God not only looks at what the people are. They are a sinful people. They've been punished for their sins. Now they're under siege by enemy armies. But God doesn't just look at what we are. He looks at what we can become by His grace. This is how Jesus thinks. This is how Jesus thought when He walked through His earthly ministry and He saw people like the woman at the Samaritan well and His own disciples and Zacchaeus. He didn't look at just what they were, but He told them what they could become. When you ask this question of everything in your life, not only are you going to raise your hope level, but you're going to raise the hope level of others as well. This Advent season, make asking this question part of your DNA, and I know you will have good days.